Requires 70.
This has got to be taken out. Double top.
Game shot on the first.
Well, we had a
leg.
slow start when it
Richard
comes
North.
to the scoring, but as far as the doubling's concerned, not bad at all.
Well, North has left himself for the break opportunity to move him a leg away. And Richard North's a real difficult campaigner to face. First game in a group. Because he tends to get out the gate very well and do special things like a ton plus out. And that's exactly what Richard North does there.
He's got the 60. He's got the tops as well.
Shot on the match.
Wow.
Richard
What
North.
a great game to start Thursday night. Steve West did have a chance at the bullseye to nick it 4 legs to 3, but ultimately Richard North gets the 100 checkout to take it with 4 out of 4 on the doubles. A lot to admire, as you can see. 3 180s and a 100% on the doubles mean that he wins it, in my case, by 1 dart. Because if he misses that tops, you just think that West might... Single 20 or 12 for a shot at double.
Game shot on the
Very
first
sharp
leg.
indeed from
Wesley
Sparky.
Harms.
That is
Game shot
really,
on the
really
match.
good from Wesley Harms. When you consider he was in real trouble in that 5th leg, he found a way to kick forward, a bit like Femke Bol. And we know how good she is in the last 100 metres. Wesley Harms is just the same. A really good percentage on the outer ring as well, 80%. And we're going to have to watch out for him the next couple of nights. Only one more player to showcase for you. It is Dan Reed. He will play his first game of the night against Richard North next. Record holder Daryl Pilgrim, who's done it twice. Once in defeat and once in a victory.
This is tops for Reed, and that is 2-1, and that's a ton topper for Dan the Man. As Reed goes for 96 to bring the arrears back to 3-2.
Oh, that's brilliant. So is that.
On the 5th leg.
That's wonderful from Dan.
Gears at the right time, but Reed finds a big visit to pile the pressure on this tops for Richard North to move on to 4 and to move into a position of authority in the group. He had the 2 of the first 3 games. He's won 2 of the first 3 games, and it means that Richard North is sitting pretty at the top of the league table, beating Dan Reed by 4 legs to 3. 4 out of 19 on the doubles compared to 3 out of 10. There was a squiffy leg in the middle, but other than that, Richard North just had a little bit too much in the end for Dan Reed. Coming up after the break, Steve West, Scott Walters continues our evening action. Back for 2 at tots, and Walters, when it's come to the finishing zone, has been making a bit of a meal of things.
Oh, I love that play. It's so underused. Bravo, Westy. Please let it become ubiquitous. That is really clever.
Because I do want to have a conversation about it, but Walters has left himself 106 here, has got 6 at it to level up at 2 apiece. Oh my. And just look at his face. Look at his face. Look at the concern and look at the woe and look at the glimmer and the absolute horror when he found out.
90.
It's just a case of, right, what have I left? And he's hoping, is it something good? Is it? Oh, it's double 9. I'm not going for that. Honestly, those reactions from Walters, they needed subtitles.
81.
They were brilliant.
Scotty requires 16.
But he's laid up for double 8. And he has taken it. That was a very unconventional 106 points and 4 darts. Good on the approach.
110.
Oh, not again. He almost got away with it, you know.
78.
Had he hit
Stevie requires 65.
that double 15, he would have had a shot at double 10.
And his fallibility on the finishing has opened up the door for Steve West, who crowbars it open. And for the second game in succession, Scott Walters goes down 4-2. And so Steve West picks his first points up of the night. 86 averages apiece and 4 out of 4 on the doubles as far as West is concerned. Harms and Reed takes us to the halfway stage after this short break.
He has
64.
got to take that 110 is because Harms has been really good on the outer ring tonight. That's okay. At least with missing his single and hitting his double, he leaves something he likes.
Games
Unlike
on the second
Scott
leg.
Walters from the previous
Wesley
match, and he's so
Harms.
good, he takes 2 doubles to get a 2-0 lead.
Wesley
Think
requires
and do the right
16.
thing.
So 8 for a 3-0 lead. A little nudge across. Now that becomes a little bit awkward, and as you can see, he has to move across. What can he find?
Games on the
Oh,
third
that's a
leg.
marvellous
Wesley
find.
Harms.
But Dan Reid, with his first maximum of the match, gave himself this chance.
You sense he's going to have to go as much for his confidence as much as it is for his chances in the match. The first
29.
one strayed the wire. The second one dipped
require
below.
44.
And those couple of darts of double was probably representative of Dan Reid's match as Harms looks at double 16 to seal a 4-0
Game shot
victory.
on the match.
And that is as
Wesley
convincing can be. It was steady and assured from Sparky as Wesley Harms sealed a 4-0 success against Dan Reid, doing so with an 89.73 average, 50% when it came to the doubling. Harms a 4-0 victor. Coming up after this short break, Richard North up against Scott Walters kicks off the second half's worth of action.
64.
And we've mentioned this a few times tonight when it's come to Scott Walters. In and around that department, he's found some fallibility. And so it's the double 16
Games on the
ability
third leg.
of Richard North that
Richard
gets
North.
tested to the hilt. But he converts last dart in hand.
Oh my word. What has just happened there? He's missed that by so far. Has he left double 17?
He has left double 17.
That is such a jammy thing to do, Richard. Make the most of it if you can. That would have hurt Walters a
78.
lot.
Scott, you require 28.
And so, second chance for Walters.
Game
And in it
shot on
goes.
the match.
And finally, it is a win for Walters. Scott gets over the line by getting the better of Richard North by 4 legs to 3. North chastising himself over the slip of the second dart there, which left him a match dart at double 17. As for Walters, a 4-3 success, 4 out of 11 on the finishing. He is into the winner's enclosure at long last. Coming up after the break, this could be a heavyweight battle. It's the 2 Group A players going toe-to-toe as Steve West takes on Wesley Harms.
Steve
Great
requires
lead there, the treble
65.
14 to leave himself on 32. And so West comes back for 65. Perfectly pinned semi-ball.
Game shot on the
Perfectly
second
pinned
leg.
top.
Steve West.
2-0 Steve West. Good
100,
find
Steve
with the last.
He just
127.
won't leave West alone.
He's going to get a dart at the ball for the match. And that is
Game
superb
shot on
from
the
Steve
match.
West.
Steve
1-2-7
West.
wins the game against Wesley Harms by 4 legs to 2. An impressive display, an average in excess of 96.5, and he made a ball kick towards the line. A 12th dart leg to finish, a ton 40 followed by a ton 2-7 out. West gets the better of Harms by 4 legs to 2. And after the break, we're going to see Scott Walters in action. He can make it a quartet on 4 points if he can get the better of Dan Reid.
You require 96.
But it worked really well for him. Don't even think of a double-double here. Shouldn't even entertain it. Double 8.
Game
Very
shot on the
good. That's a
fourth
12
leg.
darter.
Scott Walters.
And that 11 darter at the start of the match for Dan seems like a distant memory. 70
Scott
points away from
requires
that.
70.
Make that 16.
62.
Has to
And you
wait
require
for another chance.
116.
Dan Reid won the opening leg with something special. He needs to save the match with something just as magnificent, but he's not going to find the trouble. And so Walters is going to
58.
come back,
Scott, you require
looking at
8.
double 4 to make it 4 players on 4
Game
points
shot on
at the top
match.
of the
Scott
group.
Walters.
And it was a really good recovery in the second half of the night for Scott Walters after losing his first 2 games by the way of a score 4-2 scoreline. He has recovered to win his final 2. That time there against Dan Reid by 4 legs to 1. Coming up after the break, Wesley Harms and Richard North round their nights off.
I have something in the way. Something in the way of the bullseye this time. But you wouldn't
Game
think
shot
it.
the second
What a
leg.
wonderful shot from Wesley.
Harms.
Because the man sat alongside me is going to be here next week, we will definitely get a 9 darts. So get the planner ready already.
You're not here next week?
I will be here.
Well, if you're here and I'm here and Connor's here, you know what's going to happen.
130. Wesley requires 65.
So far, this is a really good performance. Double top.
Game
11
shot
dart
the
leg
third
from
leg.
Wesley Harms.
Wesley Harms.
Equalising the best leg of tonight.
Of about
Wesley
10 at
required
scenario,
8.
but Wesley Harms comes back wanting double 4 for what would be his
Game
second
shot and the
4-0
match.
win of the
Wesley
night as he
Harms.
gets the better of Richard North to a whitewash scoreline. North heads off having lost his last 2 games, having won his first 2 games. Harms a 4-0 victor with an average of 93, 94 and 4 out of 10 when it came to the finishing. And so we set in situ our final game of the evening session. It sees Steve West, who could find himself on 6 points going into the overnight action, taking on Dan Reed, who desperately needs to find some points. Dan is desperate. We find out whether we can get the points next.
You record 131.
He's swinging for the fence here for a 1-3-1. 2 tops. There's 1.
Game
Home run
shot the
West.
second leg.
That one is
Steve
gone,
West.
gone.
To complete the 4-1 job and to move himself onto 6 points. Bullseye for tops.
Game
Superb
shot
from
and the
Steve
match.
West.
Steve West.
With victory against Dan Reed, puts himself onto 6 points and puts himself in a pretty position to progress. Have a look at that. He got better as the night went along. A 93-84 to finish the job against Dan Reed. And, well, Steve West has pretty much put himself in the picture, hasn't he, in terms of qualification. If he beats Dan Reed, he moves on to 8 points tomorrow and it'll be a solitary victory away from qualification. He's 2 wins away, Steve West, from moving through. He's beaten Dan Reed in our final game of the session by 4 legs to 1.
1-3-1 was special, but just talk us through that 110 to get over the line. That was really impressive.
Yeah, that was a really good shot, wasn't it? When you consider that Steve's in a very comfortable position in the match, Dan's just missed his opportunity of taking it into a 6th leg. But that's the kind of thing Steve can do when he's got a little bit of confidence. He's had adversity tonight, but hitting that ball for the tops, it just goes to show how confident he was feeling in the moment.
Yeah, and Dan Reed didn't stop fighting at any point tonight, but how do you think he'll reflect on this?
It's going to be a tough pill to swallow overnight. I know that he didn't play his best in his first game, and he still lost it by the odd leg. But his averages in the next 3 weren't terrible at all. They were all high 80s. So he hasn't played poorly, but we'll have to examine those games a little bit more just to see whether they were inflated by the brilliance of the opponent or whether he was just a little bit unfortunate not to get a few more chances.
And Wesley Harms just continues to impress, doesn't he? He's getting better and better as this week goes on.
Yeah, I've spoken about a few players who seem to have the knack of finding their best stuff towards the end of a week. But 93.94, his best average of the week, came in that final game, and it could have and probably should have been better. But the fact of the matter is, he looks pretty cool and calm under pressure. And just like Steve West, they look like the 2 to beat.
Yeah, let's look over the results from our 10 matches that have taken place this evening. Then confirmation that Dan Reed ends the night without a win to his name, which is quite a shock, really, because we did pick him out, didn't we, as one of the players to come here full of confidence. Richard North starting his evening full of confidence. I think it's fair to say a 4-3 success over Steve West. Scott Walters, it took him a little while to get 2 points on the board. He was berating himself slightly after those 2 defeats early on, but he will be feeling very, very good indeed after those 2 wins, won't he? And in terms of his mindset, his demeanour, that win over North, how crucial could that be?
I think it is crucial because they know each other so well. And when you get 2 more local players to Portsmouth, they all almost create this little derby match that happens once on a Thursday, once on a Friday. And the bragging rights are there, it's evident. But you've got 2 players who've got the same points now, 4 but very different mindsets coming into Friday night. I think Walters is feeling a lot better because we said at the halfway point, if he gets 4 points, he'll be really ecstatic. Now Richard North, by getting 4 at the start, feels a bit downhearted.
Yeah, another key result that we need to pick out there was Steve West's victory over Harms, because Harms was working his way back into that contest, and then Steve West treated us to that sublime 1-2-7 to complete a 12 and get over the line.
Just another reason why you've got to admire what Steve's done tonight, because he was in trouble at this point. Look at Harms on 104. And he's thinking, I'm going to get a shot at that, and I might have to take it to a last leg decider, but sometimes you need to do something like that. And the bullseye's been pretty good to him at the end of matches today. 1 to set up tops in that final match and 1 to finish it there against Wesley. That was the best game of the night.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have a look then. Confirmation of the league standings at the halfway stage in Group B, and it is Wesley Harms who is out on top thanks to his superior leg difference over Steve West, but both players on 6 points. Scott Walters and Richard North joint on 4. Dan Reid, of course, sat bottom. Do you see any way back for Dan Reid tomorrow night?
I'm afraid not. I'm not someone who tends to put someone out to sea at this early point, but when you consider how well Steve is playing at the minute, I fancy him to beat Dan in the first game of Friday night. And if that happens, then I'm afraid he's done and dusted.
Indeed. Right then, the action resumes from 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. It'll see the conclusion of Group C action, where it's Willie Borland who currently leads the way in that table, having won all 5 of his matches this afternoon. Make sure you come and join us then, as our Field 4 finals night will be completed.